Hi, my name is Alfonso Ivy, and I am an LPC or Licensed Professional Counseling in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am the owner of Vine Life Counseling. And so I just wanted to give you guys a few tips. I did not want to post a long video. This is my the inaugural video for Vine Life Counseling. So I just want to give you a few tips on setting healthy boundaries. And so I'll name a few of these tips, but maybe I'll just speak on one today. So a few tips are these. Know your limits. That's one tip for healthy boundaries. Know your values. In order to establish boundaries, you have to know what are my core values? What are the things that are personal to me? What do I want to stand by? Listen to your emotions. You have to be able to hear yourself and believe what it is you're feeling. Have some self respect or just self value. Do I value myself as much as I value others? Have some respect for others because that will help with respecting their boundaries, respecting their values, and not going overboard or not crossing in a relationship or just any relationship, girlfriend, boyfriend, brother, sister, etc. Be assertive. It is a something critical for being able to establish boundaries and guard those boundaries. Being assertive rather than passive or rather than being too aggressive. And then finally, consider the long view or the big picture. Like, what do I want down the road? Because that kind of helps you to set a boundary for it if you know where you want to go to. So, having said that, those are some of the things. But let me just stop on one, and that is the know your limit. And for example, with know your limit, you just don't want to fall into the trap of not knowing your limits or not knowing your boundaries. And it doesn't have to always be with a subject like drinking, but I'll just use drinking. It can be drinking, sex, sexuality, just anything of that nature. But drinking, for example, I there have been several times where I've known my limit and it has saved me, and there have been some times when I have not known my limit and I have failed. So an example is I was at a little college called Lincoln University. It's a historically black college in Jefferson City, Missouri. And at this particular time, I stepped out of my dorm across the hall and looked into another room, and I noticed that there were two girls in there, and one had a bag of weed, and the other had a fifth of vodka or something like that. And there were about 19 guys in there. I knew that that was not going to work out too well for me. And so I had a limit or boundary in my mind as to who do I party with, how do I party, what style it is, what are the rules of the dorm. And I didn't go in there. Long story short, turned out those 19, all 19, I believe, were expelled from the campus. And I actually got in trouble even for peeping my head in there. So that was a case where it was a success that I knew my boundaries or I knew some limits. Now, another area where I did not know my limits was drinking. When I was in the Navy, several times I went to several different countries and there were failures. So here's a question that you can ask yourself. How do I know my limit? How do I understand what that limit is? Well, one way you can understand it is just do a poll, a little metric system, which is to say the last 10 times this happened, how many of those 10 times did I succeed? And so in my case, I may say I succeeded only 2 times out of 10. Perhaps I fell drunk on my face in Sydney, Australia, drunk in my face in Pattaya Beach, Thailand, drunk on my face in the Philippines. And so several times I did something that was inappropriate because I just simply did not know what was the limits. And so to be able to know that limit before you get into something, it doesn't matter whether it's something sexual, something financial, something that is a relationship, know how far you will go and how far you will not go. And so that is a tip for understanding what questions I should ask in order to know my limit. And next, maybe we'll get a little bit further into what should I do in order to guard my boundary or guard myself once I know my limit. So as for right now, that is all that I have on this subject matter. Hopefully it piqued your interest, and we'll get into some deeper topics at a later point. If you got any questions or comments, let me know. You can even email me, vinelifelpc@gmail.com. All right, that'll be all.